Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
The holidays, Jeffrey.
David.
Jeff.
Dave.
Hi, everybody.
Hey. Hi.
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 Hello.
Hello.
My name is David Bell,
And my name is Jeffrey May.
and we just watched Elf's Special Christmas.
Alf's very special Christmas.
Oh, it's very special.
Alf's in a 1-hour special. When the Tanners lose Alf, he makes some new friends to get back home. It's Alf's Special Christmas.
Some would say the specialist of Christmases. And Dave, thank you for letting me force this on you.
Of course. So, okay. First of all, Jeff, thanks for being on. This is pre-recorded, so if we're both dead,
Yeah.
then I don't know. That's a neat treat for you guys.
If we got a weird disease, or we jumped off of a bridge and nobody was there to talk us down.
Yeah.
Any number
Happy
of
holidays, everyone.
A number of tragic holiday experiences that are aggressively and explicitly addressed in this show.
Yeah. So first of all, if you type in Elf's Special Christmas on Google or Yahoo or Bing, and you go to the videos, you will find this. It's 47 minutes.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube. It is available if you want to watch it.
Yeah.
Jeff, I asked you if you wanted to do a holiday thing, and you said yes. I would like Elf's Special Christmas. We need to get into that.
Dave?
I was going to say, do you want to plug anything at the top of this?
Yeah, Alf Season 2 on DVD, where you can get Alf Special Christmas.
All right.
No.
All right.
No, so for those of you that, if you don't know me by now, I don't know what? Like, how did this happen? But hey, it's me, Jeff. I'm on Tom and Jeff Watch Batman on this network, on the Patreon. I also have my own network, patreon.com/JeffMay, where I have shows like Jeff Has Cool Friends, as well as monthly shows like Ugh Fine with Kim Crawl, or Nerd with Dre Alvarez, which you can also get for free. You may also know me from Unpopular Opinion, and you don't even like sports, or, I do live comedy sometimes. So we got that going for us too.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Okay. So why? Why Elf?
Why would I do this to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I know why, but I want to hear it. I want to hear you say.
I'm not sure if you do, because this is actually a very important Christmas special to me, and this ties down to, you can really. I'm a very easy person to unwrap. The things that I like and the things that I sort of continue obsessions of, they're very easy to find. I'm a Christmas guy. You know that. We talked about this before. I love Christmas.
We have.
And in 1986, we had a VCR, and we recorded several Christmas specials onto one tape. We had Frosty the Snowman, 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, Charlie Brown Christmas, The Grinch, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and finally the Alf Christmas special. They were all on this, okay? I watched that tape year round. I was 6 into 7 years old. I watched that tape year round for years. I loved it. I loved the season of Christmas. I really loved it. It was very much like plugging into the Matrix, where I was just like, yes, a moment where I don't feel poor.
Yeah, and we all have these tapes, right? I had like Looney Tunes, where I had like the one where like Daffy Duck fights the Nazi, and like the Gremlins. Like we all have that like beat up VHS tape as a kid, or our generation, that we watched until it disintegrated, right?
I would say I wish I could find that tape, primarily because of the commercials. Like, I remember all the commercials very well, but I have an obsession with commercials. Obviously, that people know that as well. And so Christmas commercials is a nice intersection where it's like, I know verbatim the falling star McDonald Land commercial where it's, it was wrapped in ribbon and given, but Twinkle it didn't. Oh, dear me. You see, Birdie and Grimace, a star can never belong just to me. It belongs way up high for everyone to see. Like shit like that. That stuff is ingrained into my body. It's soaked into my bones. It radiated there. And ALF was the finale of that tape. So it was also the thing that I would be more willing, if I was impatient, I could just watch that because I would hit rewind and I'd be like, you know what? Let's just watch it from the ALF part.
Right.
But as an adult, you start to, because as a 6-year-old, I didn't necessarily get how utterly insane the decision to make this special is.
Yeah. All right. I just want to say what my background with ALF is. I'm not sure I've seen an episode of ALF. I might have as a kid. Yeah. But if I did, it certainly didn't stick with me. My most experience with ALF is what a tape I watched numerous times was that anti-drug one where all the cartoon characters got together. And I recall ALF was there and Garfield and ALF kind of had an issue because ALF eats cats.
Yes. And ALF was a cartoon. It was obviously a pretty successful TV series it was a very flash in the pan couple of seasons, but it was a phenomenon. ALF. Yeah. So sorry, I just need to share my impressions of ALF based off the fact that this is my first time as an adult experiencing ALF. He is unpleasant. He is an unpleasant character. He is a selfish prick. Yeah.
I was just like, why is this a show? Why is this a character? He's just loud and he just ruins everything.
It's like Sinbad in House Guest. You're like, the comedy is that these normal people have to deal with not only a very strange house guest, but a house guest who's also inconsiderate, but there's no other options. He's just...
Right.
Yeah.
It's not just that he's an alien and doesn't understand. It's also that he's an alien and doesn't understand and is an asshole.
Yeah, which we don't know if that's just the customs. Different people from different regions. I know we try everybody tries to be overly diplomatic that humans are all the same. It's yes, but we all have different customs. And sometimes those customs are in interpersonal relationships. Small talk in certain areas is considered wasteful. In America, small talk is a polite way to not have tension. But in other places, it's considered a waste of time and therefore kind of rude. And so you don't know if ALF, if everyone's kind of a bore, a BOOR, not BORE, kind of a real kind of insufferable prick, I guess is the best way to put it. But that makes it so it's fish out of water, but it's fish out of water with somebody who's also not clued into being polite.
Right, and he's just shitting on this family. It reminds me, because there's a laugh track, right?
Yeah.
It reminds me of the Rodney Dangerfield scenes in Natural Born Killers, where he's a monster and they add a laugh track for irony. It reminded me of that, where it's ALF is coming in and he's just loud and a monster and talking about cooking and broiling cats.
That's how it starts.
And just again taking a dump on their, literally taking a dump, but also just doing terrible things, and it's just laugh tracks.
Yeah,
and it's very funny to me.
He's doing 12. He's doing a 12 Days of Christmas kind of a song in the start. You see, this is also okay. So what's important to know is that this is actually the only episode up to this point. So this is midpoint season 2. Tom, I need you to know, Dave, that I have bought this DVD season specifically so I had access to this special.
That's good. That's fair.
I bought this. God, it's got to be about 13, 14 years ago.
And people
maybe.
asking well, what about YouTube? Those people are fools.
Yeah.
What if the internet goes out? How are you going to watch out?
Also, we seem to forget that YouTube is only 15 years old. Yeah. YouTube is not what it was, where it was mostly people just doing Fred videos and stuff. What people weren't going out of their way to upload previously copywritten material and letting it exist.
And at any point they can just decide that's not there anymore. Same with Amazon, frankly. Is Amazon, it's oh yeah, that'll be around forever. And it's will it? Or will one day, maybe all of the stuff you bought the videos disappear.
Yeah.
Because it could.
Because now it's
you don't own it.
a Mazilon now. And so you have to subscribe to a different Neuralink in order to get your videos or whatever. Yeah. But so like I've always had this, and to full disclosure, I do remember reading, and this is in my old life, I remember reading on Cracked, somebody had done a part of an article about this. And I felt seen. I felt like somebody finally got to understand the thing that I was obsessed with. Because like we'd always talk about stuff, and I'd be like, oh, like the ALF Christmas special, and like everybody I talked to was like, what are you talking about? And I would have to explain it to you, and we're going to describe this whole thing, but when you explain it to somebody will think you had a stroke.
Yes, because the thing about this this episode, this special, is that it keeps making offers and then not completely following through. Like some of it does, but it just keeps adding things. Like just to start, they're driving to a cabin. And I've seen this premise a lot. I saw it, like Bob's Burgers just did it. It's an age-old one, which is we're going to this cabin, and someone's like, oh, I packed the TV, and that person's ALF in this case, and they're like, no electricity. So I thought, oh, so this is going to be one of those where it's like everything, because the dad is like, this is going to be the best Christmas, because this is what I... so I expected
Christmas ever.
Yeah, I expected it to be like a wilderness episode where it's like, oh, run into a bear or something like that. And it turns out the cabin doesn't matter.
No, the cabin
is not related.
It's home base. It's the safe home base. Yeah.
Yeah. And they almost immediately leave the cabin to make most of the adventure in a children's hospital. Yes. And it was like, well, why don't you just start
Well, you can't really have them go. You can't have them go on Christmas vacation to a children's hospital.
Well, you can have like the car breakdown or do some. No, you know what I mean? It's like there's a way to like get them to a children's hospital that doesn't involve this like cabin. But I mean, whatever.
Yeah, but no. I'm actually, Dave. I'm actually going to disagree with you here. The cabin is important because the cabin is
narratively.
The cabin is narratively very important because they're going to this cabin for the holidays because. When Willie tells the story, Willie is the father of the family. He's like, look, he's like, my parents lost their jobs back in the day. And remember that back in the day for these people is like the late 40s, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
Because, the Tanners are in their, late 40s, I'm guessing. And this is 1986. So like, okay. Like, so you get it. Like it would have been like the early 50s or something. He's like, and we went to this, and we had nothing. We lost our house. And, Mr. Foley, who we're going to meet later, is the owner of the cabin, let us live here for as long as we wanted. And our first Christmas there, we had nothing. And it still, it really instilled the Christmas spirit in me. And so Willie's really explaining, like, I want you guys to have this. I want you to have this very much like the way Clark Griswold wants to have an old-fashioned family Christmas.
Right. And again, it's setting up a specific trope that you're right. The cabin does narratively work out,
especially at the end. Yeah.
But yeah, like it's setting up something that it doesn't do at this point.
Well, it's a real red herring in that regard. Like it's important to the plot, but it's also a wonderful narrative red herring where you're like, oh, this is what it's going to be about. And you will never guess what it's about if you didn't see this.
Absolutely.
Because this is such an insane choice for how to do a holiday special. And it really has to do, there's some behind the scenes stuff about this where there's an actual living human person, unfortunately no longer living, that was involved with this.
Well, at the end, it's dedicated to several dead people. One of them has the name of the dead child.
Yes, and that's why they did the episode like this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because it was like sort of this thing where they did a video kind of call. I don't know how they managed to set that up with this sick girl and ALF. And
Zoom. They just Zoom.
Yeah, they used Zoom. I think it was Skype back then. I think they actually could only use Skype.
You're right. Yeah.
And so like, and they never took ALF out of character. The person, the guy that runs ALF, famously difficult to work with, but also like he kept kayfabe real hard with ALF.
Yeah.
So like
you can Google ALF plus N-word and get results. Let's just put it that way.
We're here for results, Dave.
Mm-hmm. I'm just saying ALF. Yes. ALF is notoriously like a hell show behind the scenes.
So yeah. And so definitely, so ALF is one of these things where, so we get there and of course, yeah, it's still like, who brought the TV? He's like, you said there wouldn't be any TV. And then he's like, there's no, and you could see he's like seething a little bit because there's no TV because there's no electricity. And so basically Alf keeps doing really obnoxious things right at the beginning. He relabels the presents to everybody from him because he's just like, where am I going to go shopping?
Well, more importantly, he spoils all the gifts.
Yes, he not only spoils the gifts, but yeah, they go through and they're like, to Willie from Alf, to Kate from Alf, to Brian from Alf, to Alf from Alf. And he's like, what do you want me to do? And so he finally, like, he kind of blows it. And there's a very stupid part where Willie is just like, you just don't understand Christmas, do you? And it's like, no. Why the fuck would he understand Christmas? He's from a different planet.
He's a literal alien.
Yeah. What Jesus is he supposed to have known about?
And this is when I realized how terrible Alf is. Because he's loud. He's like shouting all his lines.
Yeah.
And he's doing terrible things. Like, again, when he enters the room, it's abrasive. He's abrasive to be around. Like, rude or not, he's generally abrasive.
Yeah, no, he's tough. And he might know that. You know, I recognize that I'm pretty loud sometimes and I have to keep it down. I get reminded of that quite often. So I recognize that as a kindred spirit. But the rage of Willie after Alf screws up, I think it's by the time he's like, here, Willie, hang the holly. And then Brian's finally like, Dad, that's poison oak.
Right.
And he's just like, he basically tells Alf to go throw it out and don't hurry back kind of a thing.
Yeah. And we're supposed to like feel bad for this little fucking monster. And I was just like, yeah, go die in the woods, Alf.
Yeah.
Just go.
But I do like the idea that I think it's funny that he's like screaming at the top of his lungs, like, you don't understand Christmas. What's wrong with you? And in my head, I'm just like, why the fuck would he ever understand Christmas? And he's like, you think it's just presents. And it's like, well, you didn't teach him about like the giving of yourself.
Is this his first Christmas?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, again, he eats cats, which means like their neighborhood must have a problem, right? They must think there's like a serial killer that's in the neighborhood.
That's a whole scene with the neighbors' cats and their own cat where it's like,
and then like he literally when they first come here, he says, I need to check the outdoor plumbing. And I was like, what? And he was literally taking a dump.
Yeah.
And that's got to be like cat bones, right? And like,
like
it's
like
gotta
an
be
owl
a
pellets.
nasty shit. Yeah.
It is very funny too that, well, I think it's the thing is like he prefers to eat cats, but that doesn't mean that that's his only diet. So I think that's also part of it too, where it's like he doesn't need to consume cats like some sort of feline vampire. He's just like, it's like a delicacy to him.
Is it like Little Shop of Horrors then where like, is it Tanner? The Tanner family, they give him blood every now and then or like feed him raw meat. Like what does he normally eat?
I mean, it could be just like if you're like a vegan or like a vegetarian, like Dave, you're a vegetarian, right?
Right.
You have canine teeth. You recognize that humans are generally omnivores,
yeah, but Elf
you don't
is not a vegetarian. He wants to eat cats.
Yeah, yes.
And I'm guessing if he encountered a cat and no one was looking, he's going to eat that cat.
Yeah. He's like a forced vegetarian. Like he's not being granted his preferred meat.
But they give him meat, right? I hope they give him meat.
I don't know. He eats cookies in this, so he eats.
Right. I just mean if I was living with an alien and the alien wanted to eat cats, and I was like, you can't eat cats, I'd still give him meat because if he's not eating cats and he's not getting meat, it feels like he's going to eat me at some point.
He could just in the middle of the night just start eating your foot.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, well, surely they must like go to the butcher and get him slabs of meat or whatever, or like mice or something to eat. Like mice aren't hard. I'm sure it's like having a lizard, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, like a snake. Like I know I was dating somebody whose sister had a snake, and she's like, "Oh my God, the snake was laying next to her, like on a bed. Isn't that like sweet?" People say that they don't have, that they're emotionless and feelingless, but look at that. And I was like, and I said, "Oh, it was trying to see if the person would fit."
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what they do.
Yeah.
That I've had that happen to a friend as well, where they told the vet, and the vet was like, "Oh, get away from the snake."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's trying to see if it will eat what it can eat you.
Yeah.
It doesn't love you."
Yeah. It's trying to, you're a blob of heat. Like, that's all it is to you. That's all you are to it. Like, that's not a thing. Yeah. So, I mean, Alf, Alf has in some form of way, we find out, a conscience. He has like a soul. So I understand that, like, he's not necessarily an animal, but I digress. So yeah, Willie gets mad at him for not understanding Christianity well, and kind of kicks him out.
Which isn't fair to Alf, for sure.
It is unfair. Yeah. So then he walks away and sees a van pull up, and we meet Mr. Foley. And Mr. Foley is a very nice man. And he comes up and he's like, "Oh yeah, just have fun." But you can tell he's very well acted.
Yes.
The acting is very well done. This guy is like, clearly there's something wrong. And they're like, "Oh, you know what? Well, where's Mrs. Foley?" He's like, "Oh, she's not feeling good right now." And then when he leaves, and of course...
By the way, I'm sorry. Did you recognize Mr. Foley?
No, I did not know who he was. Who is he?
George Foley, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
that's Cleavon Little.
Really?
Otherwise known as Bart from Blazing Saddles.
Yeah, that tracks. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't even think. I've never really made that connection. Oh my God.
That's the thing. He's one of those actors. I've only seen him young and basically in one thing.
Yeah.
I know he's certainly done a lot of stuff, but that was like, I kept looking at him like, he looks familiar, and I Googled it and I was like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah, that is wild to me.
Yeah.
And so, and Willie's like, "Mr. Foley, he takes discarded toys and repairs them and gives them to kids at the hospital." And he's like, "Correction. I give the toys to Santa Claus, and Santa Claus gives them to the kids." And
they're like, "Sure, man."
You're like, "Okay, well," because he does this thing. He plays Santa. Meanwhile, Alf broke into this van, and he's like playing with the toys, and he's like, "Oh, a replica of a B-2 spaceship," and it's like a football or something. He takes a skateboard. He's like, "A rolling cat platter, perfect for Lucky. I'll give it to Kate," because he's just robbing this guy.
Yeah, because he's a monster.
Yeah.
You could argue, again, he's an alien and he doesn't understand morality or whatever. It would be weirder if he knew all about Jesus, I would argue, but like...
that would be
like
so
right
weird
away.
if he came out of the ship knowing about Christ.
Yeah, exactly. That would be... That'd be enough to convert me if like an alien was like, "Yeah, we have Christ as well." I'd be like, "Shit, I guess I have to look into that Bible." But... shit, where were we going? Oh yeah, Elf doesn't have morality, but like at this point, it's season 2. I just assumed like someone fucking explained to him like the ropes of Earth. Like it's just so weird how abrasive and like immoral Elf is.
Oh yeah, no, he's a real. He has very very New York energy to his attitude. I don't know if that makes sense, but he has very like Brooklyn behavior of like, "I'm in for me and mine.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself."
Yeah. He's just a real prick. Like he's broken into this guy's and he's just taking his shit. And again, I was like, how is he even with this family for so long? Like,
yeah, they should have fucking beaten him when he was asleep.
Seriously. Yeah. Like I don't know how he survived a season. Like he is just on a rampage at the beginning of this.
He is. So Mr. Foley gets in the car and he goes, "Yeah, my wife died." He's like, "I didn't have time to tell everybody." And
he's got widower face for sure.
Oh yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel great.
No.
Yeah, and so and then he leaves, and Alf he accidentally abducts Alf.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, just good. Like
Get
he
him
went
outta
there
here.
to steal toys, and now he's gone from their lives. And for the record, it takes them a while to notice Elf is gone, and when they do like a quick search, like he's a cat that they don't particularly like. Like it's like a cat that they're cat sitting, where they're like, we better go out and look for Elf, and then they're like, he can take care of himself, and then they just sort of like go home.
Well, that's fair, because when you really think about it, this whole special, just like the real central characters are a terminal child and a suicidal Santa. So like,
it is, folks. That is what it is. Spoilers.
Yeah. You hate to like, there's a part at like the exact midway of this special that like actually makes you kind of tear up, and you're like, God damn it. Like, it's very manipulative because it's wonderfully acted. Like the acting on this episode is just out of control good.
Cleavon Little is killing it. It's just the Elf of it all. The juxtaposition of that, I never quite teared up, because I was like, this is out of its fucking mind. Because, what happens next is, he gets hauled off to a children's hospital. No one questions the toy.
No, he just looks like a stuffed toy. Yeah.
Yeah, but like Cleavon Little should be like, I clearly didn't buy that. And then
he does say that. He literally looks and he goes, I don't remember this ugly thing. But like, what else would you think it was? It's like Alf's clearly not moving. Like,
here's the thing.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this, because Elf to us is like a puppet, and Elf is also iconic. We know, like, so if we saw an Elf puppet, we go, that's a toy. But in the world of Elf, they don't know what he is. They've never seen anything like it, right? And he looks like sort of like a weird dog or something. But then on top of that, there must be an odor coming off of him.
Like a scent, like a strong scent.
Yeah, like if a gorilla stood very still, I wouldn't think that's a stuffed gorilla. It would take, and like at one point they carry him. At some point you'd be like, this is a living being. It's warm to touch. Right. I can feel its pulse. Like I can hear noises coming from it.
Luckily, we don't know Alf's physiology, so they can work around that.
Yeah.
Did you know Alf can hold his breath for 40 minutes at a time or something? You know, like.
It's just a horrifying toy, because even if it was a doll, you'd be like, what the fuck is that?
Well, you got to remember, too, that all of the children that come across it are like, that thing is fucking ugly. Like, everybody looks at it. And the funny part about it, and like part of the comedy, is that everybody in front of Alf is being like, what an ugly fucking thing. And Alf just has to sit there, and like, he knows that if he moves, he's going to end up in like a lab.
Yeah.
So he just has to sit there and have people shit all over him.
It's like, it is like a psychological torture, because how long do you think, we only see a bit of it. He might have been sitting there for like a solid hour watching kids come up and look disgusted at him and leave. Like, I'm surprised he doesn't just burst into tears the first moment he can.
Yeah.
After that.
Well, there's a kid at one point, he's like, I have this guy and this ugly guy right here. And the one kid just looks and goes, pass. And he just decides to not take any gift.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
It's fucked up. And, like, like you said, Alf doesn't understand things, but I do think he's a prick. But it's like, this certainly isn't going to help Alf. This is going to radicalize him, if anything, like against humans and children.
Yeah. I'm going to kill you all.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't we do that? Yeah.
So this girl takes Alf.
She goes, I think she's beautiful. And she misgenders him the whole time, which I think is very funny.
Yeah. And you realize pretty quickly this little girl is dead meat. Like, she's pale and she's in the children's hospital and she's Elf.
Oh, yeah. The makeup they put on her is like kind of upsetting.
Yeah. And then Elf comes alive and talks to her, which is because she handles it well.
Yeah, well, at first she's basically torturing him. She's like talking to him like it's an invisible friend, and we find out the reason she's doing that is because she's desperate for a friend, because no parents want their children rooming with her because she is dying.
Yeah, apparently parents are a real bummer, because she's like, my last roommate wasn't there anymore because the parents didn't want me to get attached. And it's like, she's not a gerbil.
Because,
like, Jesus Christ.
And then she's like starting to explain why. And then she goes, just never mind. Like
Yeah.
she kind of like is hinting at the fact that she's very much dying.
Yeah, and then later she like draws herself with angel wings and says she's going to a different world.
Yeah. And it's very like, but they actually do handle it very well of like an innocent 8-year-old girl having to face her own mortality. It's fucking, it's so upsetting. And then, so basically, she's like putting a ribbon on him and she's like, fucking with the bed and like kind of crushing him a little bit. And then finally, she's about to put earrings through his earlobes and he just goes, hold it. He's like, nope. And she's like, oh my God, you can talk. He's like, and thank God, or else you'd have me wearing a bra by now. That's a good joke.
Mm-hmm,
That is
solid elf.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like, listen, like it's a lot to dump on this girl where he's like, I'm an alien. You can't tell anybody because they'll dissect me, the government. And so she has to like bring Elf back and be like, I hate this. It sucks.
Yeah. And the guy's like, well, I get that.
Yeah, so I guess the plan is like return me, and then this guy will like throw me in the dump and I can get away or something. I assume that's the plan, right?
Like get me out of the building and then I'll figure it out at this point in time.
Yeah. Which she could just open a window. Like he could just get out of the building. Right?
I don't think so. They're like 3 floors up.
Yeah, that's fair.
He'd break his back. And then you'd have like a bleeding stuffed animal hanging out and have to explain that thing. I wonder what Alf sounds like when he breaks a bone, if it's like a weird hissing and clicking sound or something. He
makes a noise coming out because the girl says in the afterlife she hopes everybody will just be like you, Elf. And I was like, you do? And he replies, there is such a thing as a good thing.
That's too much of a good thing.
And then he makes this like laugh that was terrifying.
Yeah. So his laugh is very Willie. Like that was like the big So
that's his signature laugh because I felt like if he did that in a room full of like children, they'd all cry.
Yeah.
It was terrifying.
So the inspiration is because Paul Fusco, who is Alf, basically, he used to do a lot of work with Make-A-Wish. And kids would write to Alf, and like all these doctors would be like, "Hey," and he would do these things, and then one of them was Tiffany and died, so they decided to do this. Now, what I think is I personally am like, this guy should have gotten an Emmy for Best Supporting Actor. Was the guy who plays her physician, her doctor?
Oh, he's great,
Dr. Willoughby. Because then we see, George gives him a donation and he's like, don't open it till Christmas. That's what he keeps saying to people is don't open it till Christmas. And Dr. Willoughby, when he's talking to George and he gets the envelope, he's like, thanks, appreciate it, obviously. And they start talking about Tiffany and he's like, she asked if there's a real Santa Claus and what'd you do? And he's like, oh, I gave her this. And it's yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus, as sure as he exists is love and generosity, that whole thing. Right.
Right.
And he like kind of looks up at him and he's like, there's nothing I can do for her. And George is like, what? And he goes, what do you say to a little girl who's not going to see another Christmas? And he's like tearing up. And like that scene.
That was like a real what the fuck situation. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Not only that, but that scene breaks me. Like that, and it's perfectly done. Like in a way that you're almost annoyed that they snuck that into this.
Right. Well, it's just like, I don't know, guys. You're an elf. You didn't need to act that hard. Like I'm like it's fucked up that you made this like really serious and great.
Yeah, you're Alf. You are alien life form. Like you're a puppet on a show, and they do this. And this guy, his name's Carl Franklin, the actor, and he's been in a lot of stuff. He was like kind of like a day player or whatever. But he nails that role so much that like when you watch that part, and he's like, "What do you say to a little girl who's not going to see another Christmas?" And he's like crying but trying to be strong about it. And you're watching it and you're like, oh, you're gonna do it. You're gonna do this to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fucked up. Also, at this point, part of me was thinking, like, are they gonna cure this girl? because that felt wrong. Like, obviously, don't cure that's a bad lesson for people. Yeah. But I was like, this is going so hard that it's like, is this really what they're chosen to do?
And
like,
Dave,
this is really the Christmas special, which is watching a little girl die.
And Dave,
and it is
Dave. That's only half of it.
Yeah,
like that's the other part. Is that's only half of it. That's only half of the incredibly depressing shit that you have to deal with on this.
So it's 3 stories. And again, none of them are the cabin. So that was just, again, very weird to me. And so the next story is a quick kind of like refresher where Elf has to deliver a baby.
He sure does.
And this is disturbing for other reasons. One is that, having not watched any Elf, all I knew about him was that he was a bastard, he's abrasive, he's rude, and he eats cats.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know about him having a newborn baby near him.
Yeah.
Like
with
that.
Whatever
I don't know about
diseases
that.
he's covered in. To this non-vaccinated baby.
Yeah, but also he might eat the baby. Like, I just didn't know. Like, he's a fucking monster.
Yeah.
So.
That's true. Yeah. What's its name? Catherine. Cat, you say?
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny too because it's also like a perfect sitcom trope that they snuck into this, which is baby in an elevator.
This is what you'd assume a Christmas special episode would be around, which is like a pregnancy, and this is classic sitcom shit. So like Elf sneaks away and gets in this gurney with the pregnant woman on it. And they get stuck in the elevator through a series of a wacky circumstance. Do they ever resolve how he gets out of the elevator without being seen? I don't remember that. But
I don't know. He probably like disappears and then gets like under the gurney or something. And like,
I assume
like one would assume that that's what happens. But
it's not like a plot hole. I was just curious.
No, this is our lightning crashes moment where it's like you can't show someone dying without being like, to the baby down the hall. To which point they end up like when she's like, and this is actually like the most comedy you get in the show is her and like this woman who she was like, I want it all natural, and then he comes out and she's like, I said no drugs, right? Which I thought was really funny.
Oh yeah. So what this woman is presented with is a monster in scrubs. He pops up and tries to say he's a doctor, but he is just a fucking wolf man.
Yeah.
In scrubs. And this poor woman is stuck in an elevator with them. This is a horror movie for her.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very upsetting.
And this thing is going to handle her private parts.
Yeah. And she also acknowledges that it's a horror movie. Because like she screams, he's like, I know. And then she does it again. And he's like, yeah, I know. And she does it again. Right. He's like, you said that already.
Right. And I'm imagining now being the dad outside because they can hear in the elevator and hearing blood-curdling screams and like a goofy fucking voice and being like, I need to get in that elevator now.
I mean, to be fair, they do try it. They do try that. And the elevator stops and they're like, call maintenance. And they're like, maintenance gone home. Like it's Christmas Eve. And then they're like, and then he's like, okay, well, get George Foley. He's a handyman. Like he'll fix this. And they're like, what's he look like? He goes, red hat, beard, and he goes, Santa Claus. He's like, yes.
Yeah.
So they get him and he comes and he goes to like he repairs it, and then the doctor kind of leans in. He's like, we need to talk about the envelope you gave me. Because we're finding out that George donated, when he says, he's like, this is so much money. He's like, oh, I had a good year. He's like, no, but when people make donations, they make round numbers. This is a very specific amount of money. This is like your savings account. And this doctor calls George out for being suicidal.
Yeah, but that's all he does.
Yeah. Well, he's like,
he's like, well, Merry Christmas.
He can't do anything. So he's like, that's not just it, because he has this thing where he talks to him and he's like, look, I know this is hard and I know it's brutal and difficult and everything, but you change lives. And, and he's like, And he's like, whatever.
Yeah, he's
Merry
like, I don't
Christmas.
believe you. If you were like a puppet, maybe I'd believe you. But
And the doctor is like, well, I'm not cashing this check. He's like, it's not happening. Like,
right.
And then. So,
and he's thinking like, you will after I die. Because like that,
Then what? Yeah.
Yeah, then what? The doctor's just like, all right.
But so it's this very, it's so heavy. This is a show that was a family show.
Yeah.
And that the weight of this show is so much. It's so brutal that this was like an assault on families.
Yeah, this is devastating. They had no right to do this.
People had to have a talk after their kids saw this episode.
Right.
Like a lot of kids had to have death explained to them right before
and
Santa
suicide.
came. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this was December 14th, 1987.
Yeah.
So that's where it was. So when you really think about that, you're thinking, okay, this is like 10 days before Christmas, and now we have to explain
irresponsible.
We have to explain death and suicide to our child.
Right.
And then, through however it goes.
So wait, he delivers the baby.
He does. Yeah.
He looks at a book. He has like the husband has the baby book.
Yeah.
So the baby book is relevant. He basically delivers this baby while reading this book while being a little monster. And that's just fucked up. And then she's like, what should I name it? And he's like, name it after the dead kid.
No, first he goes, I heard Gordon's a good name. Or why don't you name it after me? And she goes, isn't Gordon an unusual name for a girl? And he just goes, how about Tiffany? And she's like, it's the 80s. Yeah, how about Tiffany?
Yeah. Yeah. For a second, I thought they were going to learn that the girl had died and like she reincarnated. I thought they were going to do like I don't know. I didn't know what they were going to do because at this point, I stupidly assumed these two plot lines had to be connected.
Yeah.
In some way. I assumed this was leading to something. But no, we never really come back to this woman and her baby.
Well, that's it. It's the idea. I think the women and the baby, there's two things. One, easy sitcom trope to do. But two, it's the obla di obla da. It's that, lightning crashes. Like when
there's also the Cleavon Little thing where Elf and Cleavon Little have like the same path throughout.
It's very similar.
I don't know what that
they keep because even so George Foley, Cleavon Little, so the baby's delivered.
They're showing he has use. They're showing he has purpose, like Elf has purpose.
Yeah, and so when they're driving, and like a big thing is Alf has been like really looking forward to like Perry Como. And like listening to like music, and then it comes on the radio, and he's in the back of the truck because he managed to get put back in. And Perry Como comes on the radio, and George turns it off, and he's like, fuck. He's so bummed. Yeah. But so then we get to the point where George stops on a bridge, and Alf is like,
he sure does.
What is happening? And so Alf throws on George's Santa costume, goes outside, and basically right as this old man is about to jump into a frozen river, Alf is like, stop.
Yeah, because Alf is faced with a question, which is, what, do I just let this happen?
Yeah,
fuck, man. Like, all right, blow my cover. Now, I have a question.
Yes.
How many times in the show do you recall, are people fooled by Elf just putting on a uniform? Because it happens twice in this episode.
Fair enough.
And I would argue it shouldn't happen
ever.
Ever. Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but what it comes down to, the one thing that this special does cover, obviously that, she equates it to being on drugs and everything like that, and that it's kind of this hallucinatory aspect of it. And
what this guy decides is unhinged.
Well, it's not only is it unhinged, but it's not as unhinged when you think about it, when you realize that he's trying to make sense, because he's like, I know you. You're that toy that's been following me around all day. And he thinks he's just going crazy because
Yeah, that's his first thing. He's like, you're a figment of my imagination. Because, he instantly sees Elf and he's like, yeah, that's the toy.
Yeah.
It's talking now.
And then he's like, I'm trying to tell you not to do this. And he's like, you're a figment of my imagination, and that means you don't exist. And he's like, this guy, he is soured because all of the facade that he's been trying to hold up is done. And he's just like, fuck this life. Fuck this planet. I'm done.
So Elf's third adventure.
Yeah.
If people haven't, if it hasn't clicked, Elf has to talk a man down from suicide.
Yeah.
Something I never thought I'd have to watch Elf do.
Yes. No,
I didn't know much about Elf. I certainly wouldn't have guessed that he ever had to talk a man from suicide.
Boy, does he. But he does it really well because he's like talking about, that
Yes.
he's like, I don't have, I got nothing anymore. Like, I have no use anymore. And he's like, and he's like, what about the fact that you allowed, Willie to relive his greatest moments with his own son, and you gave this kid a great Christmas, and you brought a smile to the face of a dying child.
Right.
And it's like, oh, fuck, man. Like, here's why this is so important to me and why it's so good.
So,
go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, if I were about to kill myself and Elf came out and started talking to me, and if I accepted that he wasn't a hallucination, that alone would make me stop.
No.
Because I'd be like, oh, there's some stuff I don't understand about this world, it seems.
Yeah.
I thought I was old and I had figured it all out. I'm going to have to explore this at least for an hour. And then maybe I'll resume.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to pause the suicide thing.
Yeah.
I can't go out not knowing what this is.
Well, and he kind of like gets this sort of like, because you would naturally think if you were gonna It's a Wonderful Life it's like, oh, you're an angel, you've come to save me,
right? No, he decides he's Santa Claus.
Yeah,
and then he describes Santa Claus, and all the descriptors, nothing like what Elf looks like.
He's got the round little belly.
That's the closest. And then he says like
chicks in a
rosy tree. Wait, what?
When he's like with a round little belly, or like shakes like he laughs like a bowl full of jelly, and Alf is just like, "I'm trying, man." Like he's just kind of like getting body shamed by.
But then he's like rosy cheeks and like a button nose, like all the other descriptions of Santa he gives. Not Elf. Couldn't be
even as a kid. I
like
didn't see
nowhere.
That. This to me, here's the thing of why I'm like kind of obsessed with this. This is a beautifully done show that isn't Alf.
Yeah.
In Alf. Like this should have been like an episode of Jake and the Fat Man or something. Like, I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. So this era, I always think about like Home Improvement had the one where JTT thought he had cancer. And like it was an emotion, like every sitcom has the emotional episode.
Oh yeah, like the Punky
just
Brewster kidnapping. Punky Brewster actually covered them a lot.
Right, just like how like the Futurama or even The Simpsons would have these where they're like, we're going to hit you like a ton of bricks. In this one, we're going to surprise you with emotions. It's a long-going tradition. The thing that makes it interesting with this is that what you realize is that some like shows, it's just not in their DNA to such an extent that it's so bizarre. Or
it's unnatural.
Actually, here's the other. Actually, I would say this is that they just have to figure out during this era, they didn't try to match it with the context. Like Futurama, which I've been doing a podcast about, realized a few seasons in, everybody Fry knows is dead. Everybody he grew up with is dead. Let's use that. And that's in context of the sci-fi of Fry. Like, if they had figured out some emotional thing for Elf based off the fact that he's a fucking alien, and like, if they did something where it was like he missed his family this day or something, but no, it's just, they just took all these tropes and they just shoved Elf into them.
Yeah.
And so their tropes are done very well. This scene is really good. It's just Elf.
Yeah.
It's just, he's there, and it's hard to reconcile that.
But they do a very good job of managing to release the pressure of the weight that they're. So like this builds up a lot of pressure. Obviously, like this episode of the show builds pressure like nothing I've ever seen. Here's the reason I picked this. This is a phenomenon, Dave. Like, this is an unnatural phenomenon of a Christmas special. None of it works. It's not musical. Like, it's like
nothing about it is a Christmas special.
No, there are lessons to be learned, but they're not Christmas special lessons, other than like maybe like, love what you have, I guess.
But you mentioned the closest it gets, which is It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
That's the closest this gets to anything Christmassy. But even then, it feels more like a movie that someone would make that takes place around Christmas, like its own Christmas lore in a way.
Yes, yeah, you're not wrong. And there's more to it. So we look at that and we see it, and as the process goes through, though, they do a really good job of relieving the tension by having Alf be that. Alf is the comedy in the middle of the tragedy. Like this is a show that this is like an episode of ER. Okay.
Yeah.
Like that's what this is. This is actually just an episode of ER, and like a really tough episode of ER. And they add Alf in the middle of it to break the tension that you don't like, because everything has to have a tension break in it. So Alf is that. So your main character is that comedy that's making little jokes in the middle of the darkest moments. Like a suicidal man is like, oh, you got a fat little belly. And so that's funny. And yet it's about a man who is contemplating killing himself because his wife died of cancer. Like
it's a lot.
It's so much.
Again, it's what makes the disconnect is the fact that they're doing it well.
Yeah.
That's what makes it. It's like when you watch a sketch comedy show, like a Kids in the Hall sketch is great at this, and they like do the cinematics of what they're spoofing really well.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, man, like this is good.
Yeah.
But it's also nonsense. It's that where they're like, yeah, we can write these emotional scenes. What of it? And it's like, what of it is that this is Elf.
Yeah.
Like, and you like, honestly, you see this and you're like, man, feels like all the talents are wasted here on Elf.
Yeah, but that's kind of what makes it so great.
Of course.
Like that, it's why I want to, I love sharing this with people. I have been talking about this Christmas special now for what? 25 years, 35 years, 35 years since it really came out. I've been like, fucking love this thing. Like,
and I fully understand why. I would say this is a good Christmas special.
Yeah.
I would just say it's also not a good one, a good Elf episode. It's not good for kids.
It is.
Well, no, it's fine for kids. You just have to.
You got to prep
like
them.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to prep the parents of like, listen, this is what this is about. You need to know that before sitting down and watching this with your kids.
This is one of those things that like, it's also just like, it's such a wacky thing to introduce to people where you're like, you need to see this. And then they have a preconceived notion, which I'm sure you did, of what Alf is. And then you see it and you're like, no. This is not what I signed on to watch. And that's why it's so funny. It's like a prank to me that I show people this comedy Christmas special, and it is the darkest and most emotional Christmas special you can imagine. And it's all done around an alien puppet. Yeah. Yeah, he's the Forrest Gump of tragedy in this thing.
That is what he is. Like, he's having more of a night than most people have, like, in a year.
Yeah.
Or more. Like, he's living life right now. It's fucking wild.
Yes.
And if you're wondering, he talks this guy down. And he basically, I don't know, man. It works in the scene, but he's basically just like he just says what the doctor said, and he's just like, "Don't kill yourself. People depend on you." And it's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like the greatest way to talk someone down. But
actually, that's a very good way to talk people down. That's like a very well-known way to talk people down, because a lot of times people are so worried about what they're going through that if somebody is feeling that way and you remind them that it's not just about them but their impact on other people, a lot of times it can prevent the immediate action. It's not going to prevent the long-term feeling.
He's going to have to seek help.
Yes,
this guy, for sure.
But the most important thing isn't to psychoanalyze somebody when they're in that position. The most important thing is to get them the fuck off the ledge.
Right.
Which is
for sure.
Yeah. And so that that makes sense. That is actually the best way to get into, because that it really is one of the, if you tell somebody be like, oh, you're gonna regret this, or like this is a thing that you don't want to, or you have so much to live for, people don't care. But when you're like, no,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, too many people love and care about and depend and rely on you. That will, who's gonna feed your dog or something like that. Yeah. That's what snaps people out of it.
Think of your wife. Oh, sorry.
Ooh, yeah, sorry about that,
Whoops.
dude. Whoops. One thing that we forgot to mention is that the Tanners realized it, and they go looking for Alf. And Lynn, the daughter, makes a very salient point, which is, what if he got shot in the face?
Yes.
She's like, what if, and like, you can see Willie retches a little bit about the hunting thing, and then he's like, oh, he's probably fine. It's Christmas Eve. Like,
I would argue. Well, yeah. First of all, someone hunting on Christmas Eve is weird. But if I saw him from afar, I'd actually assume he was like someone's pet dog. Like, he's not big enough to be like a bear.
I think small bear.
Yeah, I get that trope, and it's like, yeah, someone might shoot him. But like, I'd like to think a hunter would identify what he's aiming at when he's aiming at an elf. But like, then once he sees what he is, he'd definitely shoot. Like, yeah.
E.T. motherfucker, yeah.
They just sort of, it's just very funny. Like, I know there's not much they can do, but it's just funny that they just like go out and they're like, Elf, and they're like, well, he's probably fine.
I mean, they don't, but they don't think that. Like, that's the other part too. Is like,
right, they are bummed
it's
out.
It's very obvious that they don't think he's fine, and that the parents are clearly hiding from the children how nervous they are that he's dead. And and that's also like another thing where like they could have very much made it more of the comedy aspect of it, where they just assumed he was alive. But in reality, you can see that Kate and Willie are pretty sure he's dead, and they're like, all right, let's go back. And he says stuff like, oh, Alf's got a fur coat, he'll be fine, and stuff, when it really is like, we got to get our kids out of here.
Because they're gonna have to like hide the newspaper from the kids for a while when like the headlines come out of like unidentified
mysterious animal
creature
found.
And then like they're gonna be like, he went back home. I mean, I know how this show notoriously ended, which is hilarious, but it would have been bleak. It would have been bleak if Elf was shot, for sure. Not as bleak as what actually happens to Elf. Elf's fate is.
Yeah, he ends up doing 1-800 call ATT commercials or whatever.
That's true.
But yeah, so this is, it's obviously just, this is also one of my first experiences of like empathic emotion as a kid, of like seeing something on a movie or a TV screen that made me tear up. Right. Because when you're a kid, you're a fucking monster. Children are monsters. They're not naturally empathetic.
They're bad people.
They might understand like, oh, I don't want people to get hurt, but like the emotional weight of fiction isn't always there. So this was one of the earliest things where like I processed it. Even when I was young, I understood that this was something that was supposed to make me emotionally affected.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fucked up.
Isn't it great?
It is. I liked it. Ultimately, it was just fucked. Elf basically returns home, if people are wondering, and the little girl dies.
The little girl, they visit the little girl the next day.
Yeah.
Give her some presents. Gifts. Yeah. Her parents aren't
like
there.
Dedicated to dead people.
Her parents aren't there, by the way. On Christmas,
her parents what?
Her parents aren't there on Christmas morning.
I was wondering about that. It felt like none of the kids' parents were there, and I was like, "What the fuck are they saying about the way like children's hospitals work? Do parents just abandon the kids there? Like you
sometimes
take care of them?" I'm sure there's some really dark stories,
but also like
it seemed like all the kids were abandoned there.
I mean,
it was like a hospital orphanage.
For every kid that you see, there might be a kid with their family in their room. Or something
and again, she does mention her roommate's parents, but yeah, this little girl, she's dying with nobody there.
100%.
Yeah,
her parents are in Maui. Like her parents are just off to the races at this point.
Yeah,
getting started making a new kid.
Yeah. She's dying like fucking, I don't know, like fucking Daniel Plainview from There Will Be Blood, just like alone in a bed and in this like bleak situation, just bitter.
It's also funny because the Tanners visit him and they're like, we've come from with a friend, with a friend, and they show a Polaroid of ALF, and it looks like a hostage Polaroid.
Yes, it does. Like proof of life. It really does.
And I'm like, I hope they don't give her that, because I'm gonna have to answer some questions when she dies. And they're like, what is this demon photo?
Yeah. I mean, again, I guess they'd say it's a stuffed animal, but fair, that's her favorite stuffed animal. Yeah, maybe Elf is there when she dies. Maybe Elf comes visits her, or something like that.
Are you calling him Elf or Alf?
I'm calling him Elf.
Okay, because for some reason it seems like you keep
lazy.
saying you keep saying Elf, and
I was telling people like, oh, I'm gonna watch the Elf holiday thing, and people are just like, Elf. But I don't have respect for the A.
Oh, okay, because it does seem like you're saying Elf, and I just wanted to be sure you know it's Alf, right? Like I know you do. You saw
He's
it.
He's an alien laugh form or whatever.
Life. No, but you're right about laugh. Yeah.
The gag was laugh.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
You know what? I don't know why I'm seriously responding to these. Like I'm like, no, Dave, it's Alf.
Yeah.
I will say,
extraterrestrial. We should call them elves, right? Like that should be the official name for aliens. Like if we discover aliens,
they're little elves.
Let's call them elves. Yeah,
little elves. Yeah. And then so they're like, look outside, and then they see him in the car in the parking lot, which I really hope nobody is walking by that car.
Also, that's like a horror movie shot. Like it's like from the window, and he's like in this tinted, car window looking up.
Yeah,
and
it looks like he's coming
terrifying.
up from the depths. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you'd see like something come out of the depths of the sea.
Right.
Yeah.
He's a terrifying creature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at the end they're like credits, and then they're like, and she died. This was a real girl and she died.
Yeah. That's okay. It's very sweet. I get it. But again, for kids, like the best you can do for a kid is go, oh, it's all make believe. They're actors. And the show went out of its way to be like, a real child died to make this.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck, man, give me a break. But no break. This ends with a memorial for a real dead kid.
Yep. And then they're like, okay, bye.
Yeah. And that's Elf Christmas special.
That is the Alf Christmas special.
It is, man.
I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry about this. I'm glad this happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad I saw it. I'm not sure what to think of it in terms of like what it put out in the world. Like it's clearly not something I'm sure plenty of people listening to this were excited to see that we were covering it.
Yeah.
You certainly don't have to have watched it to hear us talk about it. It's not a classic, but it kind of should be in how batshit it is.
It's wild.
And what makes it batshit is that it's earnest.
Yes.
That's what makes it batshit.
That's the wackiness is that it's not really wacky. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's what's interesting about it is that it like we've been saying, it could have been any other show and it would have gone by and people wouldn't have even noticed. The fact that it's Alf is like, what does it? What makes this like a baffling pop culture artifact, you know? And I'm glad you made me watch it.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're covering it.
Did you watch it alone?
Of course.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know if you pulled anybody else in to watch it.
No. I watched it at my desk today.
Yeah.
Alone.
And you were just
enjoying it.
Alone is a very dark way to see that because you don't even have anybody to sound off on while you're watching it.
Right. To turn to and go like, this is fucked up, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Like, this is fucked up. That's fucked up. They just did this, right?
Yeah.
Which is...
Yeah, no.
That's why it's so good, though. Like, it's so good because it's not. Like, I don't know how to
swing.
It's there's a very Aikido move to the fact that it's like, oh, this movie is good because this special is good and fun because it's not fun.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. It's like if I'm watching a Halloween special, they should try to be scary, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're doing a Christmas special, it should try to be emotional. We just covered the Guardians of the Galaxy one, and it's like, yeah, it's good that they were emotional and stuff. That's part of it, and it's like a lot of specials are this like comedy / at the end we want to fill your heart, but normally they do that by not having to tackle very complex ideas like a child dying around Christmas.
Yes.
That's a complex idea that's very hard to tackle if you're doing like a fucking sitcom. So it's just, again, it's a big swing for ALF. They're overreaching, I would argue. Yeah. And it is a good, in a vacuum, it's good. I don't know. In a vacuum, it's even weirder because then you don't know the context of what's going on with ALF. You know?
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's just so good. It's so weird and good. Hell yeah. Watch it, everyone. Just watch it.
Yeah.
Hopefully you watched it before this.
Yeah, it's like if someone made an amazing stained glass art of Optimus Prime with a penis, where you're like, that's a beautiful piece of art. I'm not sure where to put it up.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to do with it at all. It's a lot of talent and time, and it takes a lot of explaining. And even when you explain it, it still doesn't make much sense.
No, it is wild. It's sort of kind of along the lines like Tom and I have been doing on Tom and Jeff Watch Batman. We've been doing the Super Friends, and we try to go through the plot of it, and it's just like, look, man, it's very stream of consciousness. There's no sanity to this process. Yeah.
It's like, listen, they were all getting high or something.
Yeah. Like these people just phoned it in and it's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, people watch it. Yeah, watch it. If this didn't convince you, I don't know what will. Stick it on for the whole family. Don't tell them what they're going to watch.
Yeah.
Just put it on and be like, let's watch the ALF Christmas special. It'll be fun. And leave it at that.
Yeah. It won't not be fun.
It won't not be fun.
Well, it won't. It'll not be fun for some people. It's not fun.
Yeah, I mean...
it's fun for me because I knew you were having to watch it.
Oh, yeah. That is the fun of this now, is making other people watch this.
Yeah.
That is the fun.
And it's so good.
It's like a practical joke to play on others.
Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah. It's good. Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for putting this in my life. And you know what? Thank you all for listening. I hope you're having a great holiday. I hope me and Jeff are still alive.
Yeah, I really hope so, yeah.
Yeah, I want to live. Do you want to the plug stuff?
I mean, as I said previously, you can check me out at patreon.com/JeffMay. Lots of stuff going on there. Lots of exclusives, early access to uncensored content for great shows, including shows like Jeff Has Cool Friends, Nerd with Dre Alvarez, and Ugh Fine with Kim Krall. You can also check me out on Unpopular Opinion and You Don't Even Like Sports, both on the Unpops Network. And, of course, here on Gamefully Unemployed with Tom and Jeff Watch Batman. If you want to see me live, head on over to A Blast from the Past on Magnolia in Burbank, California. Yep, that's where I live. The second Friday of every month for Mint on Card, my live show in a toy store. You can find me on social media at Hey There Jeffro. And we got lots of cool stuff coming, so... it's only getting better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Everything's getting better. If people want, they can check out the Gamefully Unemployed Patreon, patreon.com/Gamefully Unemployed, GAMEFULLY. We watch movies with our patrons every Friday night. But for just $5 a month, you get access to a bunch of podcasts. Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder's a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, Spiel Boys. You can review us wherever you listen to podcasts. If you go to gamefullyunemployed.com, you get access to our store where we have all sorts of t-shirts and junk. That's it.
Yeah. That's it. That's all you get.
Yeah. Follow us on the internets, on Twitter. We'll probably have accounts other places as well. And have a great holiday.
Happy holidays, everybody. Yeah. Enjoy.
Yeah. May you be elfed. Maybe you be visited by a monster.
Yes, by a rude alien.
Yeah. God, yeah. Let that if it comes true for everyone though, that's a problem, right? Like if we're all dealing with rude aliens, that means something has happened.
Yeah, like we've all got it's sort of like what Furbies were back in the 90s, you know.
Yeah. If we're like invaded by elves, just feed them our cats while crying. I don't know, man. It's fucked up.